and welcome to Diabetes Connections in the News. I'm Stacey Sims, and every other Friday, I bring you a short episode with the top diabetes stories and headlines happening now. Our top story, the U.S. Federal Trade Commission is suing the country's 3 largest pharmacy benefit managers, accusing them of steering diabetes patients toward higher-priced insulin in order to reap millions of dollars in rebates from pharmaceutical companies. The case accuses United Health Group's Optum unit, CVS Health Corp's CVS Caremark, and Cigna's Express Scripts of unfairly excluding lower-cost insulin products from lists of drugs covered by insurers. The 3 companies said in statements that the suit was baseless and defended their business practices, saying they had lowered insulin prices for businesses, unions, and patients. There's a long way to go, but if the suit is successful, it could further drive down costs. Yet another interesting outcome for people using semaglutide. This is the active component in the diabetes and weight loss drugs Wegovy and Ozempic. A new study published in the journal JAMA Network Open suggests semaglutide is linked to lower opioid overdoses in people with opioid use disorder and type 2 diabetes. Big study here, nearly 33,000 patients, and they find those who took semaglutide had significantly lower risk for overdose compared to those who had taken any of 8 other anti-diabetic medications. About 107,000 people died from drug overdoses in the U.S. in 2023, mostly from opioids, according to the CDC. Another study finding metformin may slow aging. Metformin is usually the first drug prescribed when you get a type 2 diabetes diagnosis. It's a pill. And these studies are showing that it can delay the onset of age-related diseases. Got to say, though, this is only in animal studies right now, not in people. Human trials are next. A lot of good news about diabetes drugs, but another study says that there is a consistent lack of heart and renal benefits for Black populations. This study looked at people who take SGLT2s and GLP-1s and found that for white and Asian populations, these drugs have a lot of benefits for blood pressure, weight control, and renal function, significantly reducing the risk of severe heart problems, and kidney disease did not show the same evidence of these beneficial effects in Black populations. These researchers are quick to say they really do not know what's going on here, and they are concerned, even though this was a big study, it might be something in the way Black populations were represented here. And they do say, quote, "It is important that prescribers do not hasten to deny these newer treatments to Black populations on the back of this research." So you could expect a lot more to come here. If a woman is already in a pre-diabetic state in her teen or college years, her odds for a serious complication of pregnancy later in life goes up. Prior research has found that the rate of prediabetes has tripled among Americans ages 12 to 19 over the past 10 years. These researchers tracked a group of 14,000 New York City residents ages 10 to 24. None of them had full-blown diabetes at the time they were tested, but having prediabetes in youth was linked to a doubling of risk of gestational diabetes. Prediabetes in youth was also linked to an 18% rise in the risk for hypertensive disorders during pregnancy. Measuring a teen girl's blood for signs of prediabetes might help protect her against trouble in a later pregnancy, say these researchers. Is there a link between IBD and type 1? In a recent and very large study, researchers looked at more than 630,000 people and found that irritable bowel disease seemed to significantly increase the risk of type 1 diabetes and vice versa. The highest risk was observed in patients with ulcerative colitis. Additionally, over 70% of the study cohort was followed for more than 10 years. These researchers say that reinforces the robustness of these findings. Roche plans to launch its first continuous glucose monitor in Europe in the coming weeks. The AccuCheck Smart Guide has European approval for adults with type 1 or type 2. Roche will roll out the CGM in the Netherlands, Switzerland, and Germany. It can be worn for 14 days and features predictive algorithms that Roche hopes will differentiate it from Abbott and Dexcom. However, the Roche CGM must be calibrated at first using a finger stick, and the other brands do not require that. It has 3 prediction tools, a feature to predict the risk of low blood glucose within 30 minutes, one that can forecast glucose levels over the next 2 hours, and one that predicts hypoglycemia risk at night. The company is in active discussions with the FDA on bringing AccuCheck SmartGuard to the U.S., but there is no timeline right now. Beta Bionics announces what they are calling the Bionic Circle, which looks like a share setup. So you can see diabetes data and receive alerts separate from the CGM you may be using with the system. Not a lot of information here, but it looks like others can monitor the iLet users' CGM values, meal announcements, insulin doses, and alerts from anywhere. More information on this and every story in the show notes over at diabetes-connections.com. Diabetes Canada has unveiled the key findings of a new survey about stigma, judgment, and discrimination for those who live with diabetes. The survey shows diabetes can not only negatively impact a person's physical health, but also negatively affect their personal relationships, work or studies, leisure activities, finances, and emotional well-being. In fact, nearly 90% of people living with type 1, 70% of people living with type 2 experience shame and blame for having diabetes. There is a lot in this survey. This is what really stood out to me. 40% of people with type 1 never or rarely ask for support to help manage their diabetes when they need it, and that number is 56% of people with type 2. Right back to the news in just a minute, but first, Diabetes Connections is brought to you by Edgepark, and life is busy, but you can say goodbye to diabetes supply worries. Edgepark has you covered with an array of cutting-edge insulin delivery systems and continuous glucose monitors, such as the Freestyle Libre 3 and the Dexcom G7. Edgepark accepts most insurance plans and handles the paperwork, so you can simplify your life, your diabetes care, and your budget in one click. Go to diabetes-connections.com and click on the Edgepark logo. Back to the news now, and this is National Glucose Awareness Week. Dexcom and Beyond Type 2 are teaming up for the new designation to encourage people to learn about the importance of glucose and its significant impact on overall health. The news release says National Glucose Awareness Week will feature a variety of educational resources about the importance of glucose health and information about new, cutting-edge glucose biosensing technology. The technology is, of course, what we know around here as continuous glucose monitoring, now available over the counter as Dexcom's Stelo. There is also a nationwide step challenge going on from September 30th to October 13th, and you can win prizes. There's a lot of resources from Beyond Type 2, and again, all that information is linked up in the show notes. And finally, attention, diabetes camp organizers. You're invited to apply for financial support for your need-based scholarships. This is the Type 1 Diabetes Camp Project Campership Initiative. This will also provide limited funds for selected camps to expand their revenue development efforts, funds for professional development, and funds for low-income camper recruitment efforts and indirect costs. Big grants here from the Helmsley Charitable Trust and Eli Lilly and Company over the next 3 years. Lots of information about how to apply. Again, this is for camps, not for individuals. And that's over at diabetes-connections.com. Click on this episode and all the links are right there. And that is it for In the News. I'm Stacey Sims. I'll see you back here soon. Until then, be kind to yourself.
Diabetes Connections is a production of Stacey Sims Media. All rights reserved, all wrongs avenged.